Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 145. Billy's back as England take on Ireland at HQ in the third of their World Cup warm-ups, and both sides are fielding strong squads. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hey guys, welcome back. Another big weekend. Bigger, I would say. And joining me once again, Billy is here with us in place of Dan. Hi, Billy.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good, mate. Good week. Got over the result of last weekend. Reasonably happy still. Like, how are you feeling about this England side?
Yeah, I'm still happy about the not so much the result of the weekend, but I think the performance against Wales was fine. And I think it is, World Cup warm-up is a World Cup warm-up. So, yeah, still optimistic.
Absolutely. I mean, look, there's been a lot of chat. There's always going to be. The English-Welsh rivalry is pretty huge. A lot of Welsh, I'm guessing, armchair pundits, talking up the fact that they're number one in the world, whilst all of the hardcore England lot are going, well, hang on a second, you played against the second string side and you won by a try which the rules have now changed and by today's standards would have been disallowed. So, can you be really that happy about that being the performance you put in to become the supposed number one team in the world, and in the words of Eddie Jones, the favourites to win the World Cup?
I think the Welsh are just happy anytime they beat us, to be honest. It's their World Cup final, isn't it?
Every
we'll let them have it, and when we actually bring the trophy home, then they see what real winners look like.
Yeah, we'll send them photos. We've had a few, not reviews, but I was reached out to by Roger Grace on Twitter. He had a few interesting comments, so I thought I'd go through some of those and we can have a discussion about what we think. He starts off by saying, I think in the last episode, Dan and I were talking about Carl Sinclair, Dan Cole, and which way round would you have them in terms of starters, finishers, and so on. And I was kind of leaning towards, is Dan Cole a finisher? He says, and I completely understand what the point he's making, is that Sinclair for him starts ahead of Cole because apart from anything else, he's more likely to facilitate a try than Dan Cole. So if there's an overlap in the back line, Carl Sinclair will choose the right option and he'll execute it, whereas Dan Cole is perhaps that's less certain. Is that a line of thinking that you'd agree with?
Yeah, I suppose so. Dan Cole, even if he can see an opportunity in front of him, I don't think he's got the attacking ability to take it.
It's not
whether he can see it or not. Yeah, he's not his specialist, and we want him in the tight doing a job. I would start Sinclair. I just think he's the better player. Regardless of anything, I don't think he's a liability in the scrum, and he's better in the loose. So I think it's.
And so on that basis, obvious. So on that basis, and given that front rows typically do change at about the 60-minute mark, do you feel that Dan Cole is the right man to come on and steady the ship? I mean, I guess it depends on the situation in the game, but I guess, if England are in a strong position and you want someone to come on and just provide a solid platform in the scrum, then great, Dan Cole can come in, he can do that. He's a good scrummager, he's a good player. But if England are struggling in a game and you inevitably need to change your front row, and perhaps we'll start seeing that not being the case, but what does Dan Cole offer in that last 20 minutes that's going to help change a game?
No, he doesn't. Apart from sort of stability at the set piece, at scrum time, he doesn't offer anything. If we're chasing a game, taking Sinclair off, who's a guy that can maybe make something happen in the loose, to bring Cole on, it kind of takes that away. But there's only so much you can do if you've got Sinks out on his feet after sort of 60 minutes.
True, but for you, the 31-man squad aside, that that's the right pairing, is it? And it is what it is, and you hope for a situation where Dan Cole's coming on just to see out the end of the game and keep the scrum solid, as opposed to having to come in and change things.
Yeah, I don't think we've got anyone that sort of resembles Sinks that can come off the bench and offer what he offers anyway. So I think you just go for the next best thing, which is the best man in the scrum.
And you don't think Harry Williams would offer something more?
I mean, he probably offers a little bit more than Coley, but I sort of think his little bit of give and take between the two of them. Yeah, I'd rather have Coley. I'm happy with them too.
Fair enough. He then goes on to talk about scrum half, and we were I was asking him, Hines, Youngs, by all accounts, well, not by all accounts, watching Hines, it appears that he's the informed 9 at the moment. You and I spoke last week, and we both said, actually, we felt Hines probably pipped Youngs to that starting position. Roger's feelings are that, the best of Youngs offers more than the best of Hines. Would you agree?
When's the last time we saw the best of Youngs?
Well, this is true. And again, he's got experience. I don't think he's a game changer. A little bit like that Sinclair Cole debate. But at the same time, do you follow the same rule and sort of say, well, you want your best guys on there at the beginning to create that lead, and then if you bring on it, when you bring Youngs on, it's more about steadying the ship, or is that experience that Youngs has, more valuable in a 9 shirt?
Yeah, I think I'd probably, like we discussed last week, I think if you bring Youngs in the 31, he has to start because he just doesn't offer much change off the bench. Whereas I think Willie Hines coming in, with 20 minutes to go, can offer a little bit more. Just
inject a bit of something that might be missing.
Yeah, almost Danny Care-ish.
Yeah, well, I think that's exactly it. I mean, it does beg the question: would a Hines starting with a Danny Care coming off the bench be more interesting?
Yeah, that's the dream. I think
again, it's irrelevant because he ain't in the 31. But
no.
But yeah, so
neither is Joe Marchant, and he's in the squad today.
That's a good point. I do. Yeah, when you mention I say when you mention it, you weren't mentioned on the pod, but we were talking about it beforehand because of course, Jonathan Joseph has been pulled out with a bit of a niggle, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think they didn't want to risk him. I think it was a hamstring, maybe. So Marchant's in replacement for him on the bench.
So that's really interesting because, I was surprised to see 2 centres on the bench anyway. I feel like certainly we as the fans have got a pretty good idea of what that midfield is going to look like or what it could look like. And I don't feel there's need to try out, yet more combinations there, with the options that we've already got. And it just seems strange to me that you'd have, 2, I guess, playmakers. What are you going to do? You're going to move Farrell to 10, take Tuilagi off, and then have a double so you've kind of got 3 playmakers in a row in order to try something out. Is this the game where he's going to get a bit weird and move George Ford to number 9?
Oh, please no.
Go Ford, Farrell. What's he looking at? Ford, Farrell, Francis. And now March. I guess Marchant's a bit more of the crash ball man, but yeah, it's an interesting one. I didn't really get it when I saw it, and I would have thought that in a situation where JJ's no longer available because of a niggle, you go, all right, well, we were thinking about something, but he's not available. We don't need to worry about that anymore. Give somebody an opportunity to try themselves out at 15. And this isn't just about the debate, is Daly England's fullback or not? Because even if you absolutely 100% are committed to him as your starting fullback, aren't these warm-up games and everything we've been hearing about testing combinations for eventualities where we need someone else who can step up? We haven't seen anyone else in the 15 shirt yet.
No, which is something that's worrying me, in all honesty. I just don't, that's like I said last week, I just don't see Daly as an international 15. And I don't know why. Watson's not in the squad at all today. I don't know if he picked up a niggle against Wales or in training, but I haven't heard anything.
No, well, I haven't. So I would have thought we'd have seen. I know that Watson's played as much as Daly in these warm-ups, so you could argue that, they had to rest one of them. But yeah, I just feel like Daly, we've seen him in the 15 shirt for some time. We've seen him in the last 2 matches. Even if you want to keep him involved, put him on the wing, but or at least have Watson on the bench with the opportunity to bring him on at some point and give him 20 minutes at fullback. Just change it up, just see what's available. And like you say, we discussed it last week. I think you and I both agree that Daly just doesn't look entirely comfortable at 15. He is a great player, and I think you need him involved, and that left boot is pretty special. But he doesn't look entirely comfortable at 15, and it just worries me that we haven't seen an alternative option where we seem to be looking at alternative options everywhere else, including George Ford at 9. We haven't seen that yet, but it's been talked about. So yeah, I'd like to see something else and just know what options exist at the back.
Yeah, I don't understand why you know, like you say, go with two centres on the bench, and then when one centre drops down, you replace him with another centre. You've got Daly at 15 who can cover centre anyway. If you put Watson on the bench, for instance, and you've got cover at wing and fullback, you've got no wingers or fullback on the bench.
Yeah. I mean, I know this isn't a test match. Well, it is a test match, but it's not it's still a warm-up game. So I understand that, and I'm sure that, if this was the World Cup, any game in the World Cup, we'd be looking at this. Eddie would be looking at the team in a different way, and I'm sure we would see that cover. But it's just, I guess I'm struggling to work out what it is that he wants to see, and therefore why the lineup is as it is. But I guess that is what the game is going to show us. Well, at least hopefully that's what the game is going to show us. Anyway, one last thing. So Roger also, he was talking about the backs again, and we were looking at 9, 10, 12, 13, that kind of from the scrum through the midfield. And I think he was saying his first choice, Hines, Farrell, Tuilagi, Slade. Which gives you obviously control. It limits defensive frailty. You've got a couple of strike runners in there. You've got creativity and a kicking option in Slade. And the point he made, which I thought was interesting, is that New Zealand are probably not losing certainly nearly as much sleep over Farrell at 12 as they would be having Manu at 12. Do you agree? Like, do you think Farrell should be? Because I think, didn't you say you preferred him at 12?
I preferred him at 12 because I wanted Cipriani at 10.
Okay, so now that's been ruled out.
Yeah.
And Cipriani's on holiday in the Caribbean or something. So do you think Farrell is therefore the starting 10 for England?
I think he has to be. I mean, I know he's playing 12 today, but if this is what Eddie wants to do going into the World Cup, having Ford at 10 and Farrell at 12, then why did we just spend a year having Farrell at 10?
No, I agree with you. I think Farrell is the 10. I think it's the right call. I think today, again, it's about looking at a couple of combinations. It does mean that Manu moves out to 13. Do you think we lose something from Manu by pushing him further wide? Or do you think that's?
I think in attack we don't. I think we don't lose anything going forward. I'm just worried about seeing how he deals with Gary Ringrose in defence today. I think that's the thing I want to sort of take from this game. I think if he puts in a good performance at 13 and sort of locks up Gary Ringrose and plays well, then I could see him starting 13 in the World Cup. Yeah.
I mean, I guess my worry is just that we spend longer getting the ball out to him. We want that ball in his hands. He's a strike runner. He's not there to put little offloads and although he can do it, that we want him there to punch holes. And just having him that little bit further out, is it one of these where we're going to be watching the game going, Manu's not in this because the ball never gets that far?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if that's the case,
you've got options.
You can always, you can move him back into 12. It's going to be interesting, I think, with obviously Jonathan Joseph and Henry Slade. You can only have two of them for them two positions. It'd be interesting to see which one misses out in the big games. Yeah,
I mean, I guess as well. One of them's going to get picked in. Well, maybe they'll both get used in the first couple of games. Maybe he'll use one in the Tonga game and another in the USA game, which will tell us absolutely nothing about what he's likely to do, unless obviously one has a shocker. But I think these are good problems to have, right? These are two quality players that offer. I guess, yeah. In JJ, you're getting your strike runner first and foremost. In Slade, you're getting a proper playmaker. And it's always typical when we watch England play, isn't it? We've seen JJ a couple of times and gone, wow, he's looking great. We haven't seen him in a while. He's the man. But actually, because Slade's been injured. But when we were last watching Slade in the 13 shirt, everyone was talking about how he was becoming a world-class player and he was the man. So I don't think it's necessarily the worst problem to have that one of those two is going to front up for England in the big games. I think there's two quality 13s there. So we shall see. But it'll be good to see Henry Slade, hopefully in the Italy game in a couple of weeks. because obviously, he's been injured for a while, a bit like McConaughey, taking all those injuries to everyone.
Did you see bookies were offering odds on him to never ever play for England? I thought that was a little bit harsh.
Are they good odds?
I think they were 100 to 1 or something like that. They were pretty good odds.
Worth a quid.
Yeah, horrible for him to see though.
Oh yeah, no. Well, hopefully it's nothing to. I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? We all speculate about what's going on in camp, and for all we know, he's absolutely fine. He is a bit of a niggle, and they're just like, well, there's no point in risking it. But he knows 100% he's going to be okay because it's, a bit of bruising, a bit of swelling, just needs it to come down, and in which case all will be good. But yeah, I hope we get an opportunity to see something from him before the World Cup starts, because.
I've kind of decided that Eddie knows he's amazing. Doesn't want anyone to see him before the World Cup. He's just going to unleash him.
I would. Blacks. Don't get me wrong. I would absolutely love that. We'll all probably lose our shit about the fact that we haven't seen him and he gets selected in a big game. But if he then turns around and it turns out that he is some secret weapon, then all hail Eddie Jones.
Yeah, it's going to be a Milner Scudder moment, I think.
Nice. Okay. Well, look. We should probably. We've kind of been talking about the game today, but let's spend a bit more time and focus on it a bit more closely. But before we do, and obviously it's a big game coming up, I think it's probably time to get inspired with some of this.
This is the one. It's coming back for Johnny Wilkinson. He drops for World Cup glory. Yes! It's up. It's over. He's done it. Johnny Wilkinson is England's hero yet again. And there's no time for Australia to come back. England have just won the World Cup.
Love that. It's the perfect way to get ready for a bit of rugby on a Saturday. It inspires me to kind of understand why we are doing this, and the fact that England are obviously going to win this World Cup, and there's just evidence of it, how it happened once before.
Yeah, that moment brings back memories for me as a kid, sitting in my grandparents' front room watching England win the World Cup.
Okay, that's depressing that you're describing it as a kid. I was at uni getting really drunk.
Oh no, I was a child.
But
it got me
good
into
times.
The game.
So that's what it's all about. I mean,
exactly.
And that's what all these things, this World Cup, and it is great for the game. And what do you speaking of what's great for the game? Any thoughts on World Rugby's big announcement that they're changing the name of the Women's World Cup to the World Cup?
Oh, mate, I don't really care. To be honest,
is it not just a bit like, if you like? I'm all for trying to even the playing field and all, whatever else, however else they want to go about it. That's fine, but surely you're better off if you really feel that strongly about it. Just call it the Men's World Cup and the Women's World Cup.
I don't see what the big deal. I enjoy women's rugby. I enjoy watching the Red Roses play. I don't see what they're going to achieve. Are they going to hope that people that don't watch women's rugby assume that it's a men's World Cup and put it on and keep on watching it? I don't understand.
I don't think it's that at all. I don't think it has any. I don't think it's intended to have any impact on the game itself, except to make it look like they're, being more inclusive. And it's nuts because it's I don't know many women who are into their rugby who feel strongly that this is a positive thing. It's taking away the identity of the women's game. If you want to separate the two out, if you don't want it, I understand that calling one the World Cup and then having a sort of caveat on the other one might seem unreasonable. But I think if that's the case, just call it the Men's World Cup or the Women's World Cup and let's get on with it.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense, I think.
Anyway. Sorry, let's just move. I did say we were going to talk about today's game, so I don't know why we went off on a tangent there. And speaking of tangents, I trust that you've been monitoring England's performance in the Ashes.
Oh God, yes, that's ruined me week.
Well, it's not over yet. I mean,
let's
they broke for lunch, only needing 350 to win.
Only
back in the day, that was a very doable single innings score. Just haven't seen it for about 20 years, but.
Well, no, we've got a middle order batsman opening, so I'm not too confident. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
He's due some runs.
Yeah,
I would love. This is the kind of game where you want to just. I mean, obviously we want to win all of them, but there'd be something quite sweet It's always sweet to beat the Aussies, but there'd be something quite sweet about getting one of our lowest scores in the last 100 years in the first innings. Australia, batting reasonably well in their second innings, thinking it was all over, and then actually going and taking it to them and putting them to bed. But I don't know. We'll see. There are more important sporting events happening today.
Yeah, that takes a back seat today.
So yeah, we can catch up with that this evening, see how they got on. Today's game. England and Ireland both have been playing, kind of, I guess, trial sides, testing combinations. Ireland, it was a bit easier. They were up against Italy. They put out a team of pretty much a second team, but like England did with Wales, absolutely mullered the Italians. Today, England did the same with Wales at Twickenham. Maybe not absolutely mullered, but it was a comfortable victory with a second team. And then they went to Cardiff.
I prefer absolutely mullered.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think we absolutely mullered them.
Given that it was a second team. And then, of course, went to Cardiff and, we lost. But again, it was a second team. We only lost by 7. It was 7 points, which, wouldn't have been allowed by today's rules because they just changed this week. That's irrelevant. I mean, I don't have an issue with the fact they did it in the game because there was nothing wrong with it. So it's smart. And we said at the time,
technically, I was listening to another podcast, and Hugo Monye said that he spoke to. I know, blasphemy. But Hugo Monye said that he'd spoken to a couple of referees, and they said that it actually shouldn't have been allowed because if the HIA wasn't off the field.
Well, that's the rule that they've brought in, though, is that now any HIA-related replacements need to be completed before play can continue. So I wonder whether that was just sort of a lot of referees were like, that's common sense, but it was never written down in the rules. And now it's been written down in the rules. Look, it's not about being bitter because, as I say, if that wasn't a rule and the gap was there, it was smart thinking. If it had been the other way around, we'd all be loving it.
Agreed.
Fair play. It's a lesson learned, but not one that I think needs a lot of practice. That it is what it is. It's one of those things we said it at the time. It's not something they're going to do again. I'm glad the rule has been changed. A lot of Welsh moaning about that, suggesting that England have influence over world rugby, but I think majority of fans would agree it makes sense to have that rule. Like it's fair enough. But I'm not convinced that you should be able to go quick if there's a yellow card. Either because I kind of think that you're getting a huge advantage by the opposition losing a player, but that's beside the point because HIA 100%. If you're forced to go off because someone thinks you might have an injury, the opposition shouldn't take advantage from that.
So here's it was a little bit of a weird thought process I went through, but if Anthony Watson, because he wasn't off the field of play yet, if he would have stayed on the field of play and attempted to make a tackle, would the referee have blown the game dead?
It's an interesting one. Or would he have got a second yellow and been sent off?
Yeah, but they started play whilst he's on the field of play, so I'm not sure how that would have worked. It might have saved us conceding a try.
If anybody knows the answer to this question, I suspect no one will know. But if anybody does know, or they've got a good theory, reach out. EnglandRugbyPod@gmail.com or at EnglandRugbyPod on social media. I'd be fascinated to know what you guys think. Because Billy, you're right. It's what would have happened if he just he was out there where the ball was being kicked. If he just gone and intercepted it.
Yeah, is that he's not off the field yet? They've decided to continue playing.
What would have happened is the ref would have just given him the penalty again, back where it came from.
Yeah,
and just said and said you can't go quick.
Yeah, would have saved us some points.
Yeah, and then we'd have brought on our gun bench a little bit earlier, and we'd have stuck 3 tries on them, and mullered them, and we'd be world number 1 right now.
So basically, it's Anthony Watson's fault. Pretty much.
Yeah, for both getting sent off and then not risking a red card. Speaking of that card, was that a yellow card?
Yeah, I've got no complaints. If it was the other way around, I would have wanted him binned. Yeah. If it was a Welsh player, so I've not really got any complaints. I think he knew what he was doing.
And there's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot of chat, isn't there, about, World Rugby wants people to tackle around the waist. They want to wrap arms. And, when you do, you get pinged. I guess the question is, for it to be a yellow card, it's an intentional knock-on. I'm not convinced that I would say he intentionally knocked the ball on. I would say he went in for the tackle and he put his arms in a position where he knew that there was a chance he could intercept the pass.
See, I don't think I think he put his arm there knowing that if he made the tackle, then great, and if he didn't, he'd probably get a hand on the pass. And
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But therefore, so penalty. But is that an intentional knock-on? I mean, when I think of intentional knock-ons, it's you're never going to get the ball, but you can knock it onto the floor to stop someone else from getting it. Whereas I feel like he would have gone into that tackle thinking, I'll make the tackle, and if he gets the pass away, perhaps I can kind of stop it getting. I don't know. It feels a little bit less like an intentional knock-on. So perhaps a card was harsh, but
potentially, I think maybe if there was more cover on the wing, then it might not have been a yellow card.
Yeah, last man.
I think the ref kind of thought that they could have gained some good territory if the pass would have found its man. So I think that might have played into his decision as well. But I also think that if that's a yellow card, then Dan Biggers on Maro Itoje is a yellow card as well.
I don't think there are many people, even the Welsh fans. I mean, there were certainly some that were trying, but in most cases, they're like, yeah, he got away with it. And it's ironic because the ref was literally stood in front of him, and it was like a. Well, it was actually like a gazelle trying to take down a lion, but
it was ridiculous.
It was a bit when you. I mean, to be fair, during the game, I didn't notice it really. It wasn't something that made me suddenly stand up screaming, going, "What the hell? How did you get away with that?" It's been afterwards, seeing all the replays, going, "How did he get it?"
Yeah, when I watched it live, I thought that doesn't look right. But obviously because the play
carried on,
I don't think anything more of it. And then when I saw the replay, I thought, Jesus Christ, he's just thrown himself into his head.
Yeah, that was nuts. It's important the referees get these fairly basic things right, isn't it? I mean, we're going to a World Cup, and
if that's in the World Cup, we're all up in arms and doing our nutting.
And rightly so. And to be fair, if it was the other way around, we'd all be sheepishly staying very quiet about it because it's not really defensible. But hey ho, it happened. Maro of Itoje survived, so we've got too many complaints. And like we say, it's a warm up game. It's about testing things out and identifying things, and gave Eddie Jones an opportunity to say a few things. And people will complain about that, but that's good. We want that. We want referee. It's a bit like captains. It's a bit like Anthony Wynne-Jones, Alan Wynne-Jones. He's in the ref's ear all day long, and then and as a result, certain things go his way that maybe wouldn't have done. And it's what we massively lack in Farrell, but it's something that Jono back in the day, that was something he was so good at. He had so much respect from not just opposition players and his own, of course, but also from the referees, that when he said something, they listened. Alan Wynne-Jones gets that a little bit from the referees.
Faz definitely doesn't.
And Farrell doesn't, and they don't really seem to like him. And it does worry me a little bit in tight games that there will be opposition captains who can influence the referee better than we can. But there isn't really anyone. We haven't really got anyone that fills that role.
I think Farrell's been a bit of a gobshite previously towards refs, and I think that's kind of plays against him now. He's in that captain role. Like you say, I don't really see anyone else that
it's not like it's not like someone else could do it. I mean, I'm sure there are guys that are respected, but they tend to be quieter, and I think Farrell offers things that they wouldn't. So I think we have to just live with it. But it does mean that they just have to be that little bit more careful about just not making silly mistakes that other teams can, particularly other teams' captains, can capitalise on by getting in the ref's ear. And it's one of the reasons why I think Eddie Jones points certain things out, because it's getting those messages kind of across and kind of letting the rugby world know that he knows before someone like an Owen Farrell has to try and do it during a game. So, I think fair enough. Okay, so I mean, as I say, England side, well, both England and Ireland playing pretty much full strength sides today. Are you are you happy to be seeing a much more? It's not. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say it's a World Cup final starting 15 by any stretch. But you go through that team, and certainly the majority of them will be in the starting 23. You wouldn't necessarily start that 15.
Yeah.
But is it good to see a team that's a little bit less kind of I don't know how he described it. Second 15-ish.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more what I wanted to see for this game. I would have preferred Farrell at 10, and then maybe sort of Tuilagi and Joseph at 12 13.
I think we will see that. Obviously not Joseph, but I think we will see Farrell move to 10 and Manu go into the 12
I think that's the problem now. With obviously Joseph being out and Marchant in, what do we get out of seeing? I mean, if Marchant comes on and does really well, it's just a headache for Eddie, I suppose. But if it means getting rid of Piers Francis, then I'm all for it.
Do you think that's maybe what's going on here? He's contemplating going the other way and saying, I could do with...
I think Piers Francis has photographs of Eddie Jones that Eddie Jones doesn't want anyone to see, if I'm honest.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. I mean, I kind of feel a little bit for Piers Francis because we've all sort of written him off. And it's not, he hasn't done anything particularly bad, but the trouble is often the case, he hasn't done anything great either. But Henry Slade was the same for about 3 years. I, for one, on the podcast was constantly just questioning why is he even involved? He's just not good enough. And then suddenly he came good. So
yeah, I mean, if Francis does the same, then I'll happily take it back and say that he deserved to be there. I'm still not over the fact Ben Teo's not in the squad. If I'm honest, I know I should probably get over it, but I'm not.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that. And obviously, I mentioned Dan and I spoke about it in the midweek episode, but it's he's obviously ruled himself out of even having the opportunity to be called up now.
Yeah.
Is that? Do you think that's because he's been told it's not going to happen? Doesn't matter if there are injuries, we'll find someone else. Or do you think he's simply got a bit pissed off that he wasn't taken, and so he's kind of gone, screw you, England, I'm off.
Yeah. If I'm honest, I don't think he really cared. I think when he was not in the initial 31, I don't think he was thinking, I'll wait and see if I get called up. I think he just went, well, what's next? Where can I go and earn a pound note somewhere else? Which is fair enough. It's a short career. He can do what he pleases. I just think it's a waste. I don't think it's something that the All Blacks would do. They wouldn't let one of their best centres just walk away before a World Cup. They'd probably deal with him and then let him sort of go afterwards.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, and also Eddie Jones doesn't strike me as the sort of person to kind of take like a moral high ground. I feel like he's the sort of person that might send you home from a training camp, but then he'd call you back in and go, well, yeah, he's learned his lesson now. So I just wonder whether there's more to it. Than
maybe.
Simply...
I mean, he did that with Denny Solomona, though, didn't he? We haven't seen him since he got sent home.
True, but I think that the difference there is that we've got so much strength in the back three that it's probably a bit easier to look past Denny Solomona because he's class for there's no question. But there are so many others who are also there. But you look at Manu. He had various issues over the years. I don't know if he's had any problems under Eddie Jones. I can't remember the timeline, but he's certainly no one. In fact, no, he did. He got sent home from one of the training camps, didn't he, Manu?
I think he got sent home with
Denny Solomona, exactly. Yeah. So clearly Eddie Jones, if the talent is there, he's not holding a grudge in that respect. So I don't know. These are probably things we'll never know.
No,
but they are what they are. For this game, though, I think for me anyway, what I'm most looking forward to is what I was most looking forward to in the opening game, and that's Curry Underhill at 6 and 7, or the Kamikaze Kids.
Kamikaze Kids.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this.
I think it's awesome. We've been calling it on the pod for a while, at least wanting to see it. I think I feel sorry for Mark Wilson because he's been awesome at 6, and I don't think he's lost his spot by any stretch. But you're playing a very different type of game when you've got two snipers like Curry and Underhill. And it's the thing we massively lacked last weekend in Cardiff was that ability to properly compete at the breakdown. And now you've got two specialists.
Yeah. I can't wait to see him, just that speed and physicality and that breakdown now, so they both have.
Because what do you think we lose by not having an out-and-out 6?
I think we probably lose a little bit at the line-out.
Yeah.
I don't think Billy's not jumping. No one's getting Billy in the air. So it kind of leaves us with just Marrow and Crusoe as jumpers. I think a good line out, we'll figure that out pretty quickly. And obviously, I think that's going to be a test today with Peter O'Mahony.
But do you not think either one of these, Curry or Underhill, could easily have been training?
Potentially,
I don't.
It's just not their game, is it?
No.
I think it takes away that third option. I think against a team with a good line out, the All Blacks and South Africa and maybe Ireland, we'll see today. It could be an issue, but I just think that the breakdown is probably more important. I'd rather have these two at 6 and 7 then an extra jumper in the line out. So I think it's a trade that's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got Wilson on the bench. I actually hope he comes on quite early today for Billy, because I don't really understand why we're not resting Billy. We've seen what he's capable of for many years. We've seen what he's capable of in the last couple of weeks, and it's big things. Surely it's time now to just wrap him in cotton wool and say, see you in Japan.
Curry, Underhill and Wilson as your back row, it's just got engine all over it.
I mean, yeah, obviously massive. Billy is always going to be a massive loss, but you have to prepare for what happens if the worst comes about. And yeah, we want to. I don't get why he's starting today. It makes no sense to me. Like, there's no need for it.
Yeah, I don't think he'll play. I don't think he'll play a long time, and I don't think we'll see him at all against Italy. Well, no. I hope so anyway.
I'd be very surprised. I think this is it. Yeah. This is his last warm-up game, and maybe that's it. It's a week off, then it's Italy, then it's a week off, then it's Tonga, isn't it? So something like that. So
yeah, I can see him getting sort of 50 minutes today, and then that's it. See you in Japan.
Yeah, or even just pull him off at half time. Pull him off after 20 minutes. Like, depending on how it goes. If he has an impact in the first 20 minutes, switch it up then. But yeah, I kind of hope that Eddie wants to see what Curry and Underhill look like with Billy at the back, and that makes sense, because I think if you're going to go with a Curry Underhill, you need a real impact player behind them. Mm-hmm. But I think if he gets to see that early doors, then get Billy off, put Wilson on, and you've still got yourself, like you said, an engine that can do a job, and obviously you're bringing another jumper into the lineup. So.
Yeah, I suppose that's real situational rugby as well. Imagine the World Cup, Billy goes down with an injury 20 minutes, 30 minutes into the game. You're going to have to make do without him for the rest of it. So it's probably good warm-up for situational rugby.
Yeah, I mean, probably don't tell Billy that's why you're practicing it, because we don't want getting it in his head that he might go down with an injury that early on. But yeah, it's. I'm excited to see how they get on. I felt so confident watching the performances of a second string side last week, seeing the impact that the kind of the first string guys had when they came on, and just to be able to see that from start to finish today I'm looking forward to it. I'm confident, and I think England, at home, I think they're gonna do it comfortably.
Oh yeah, I'll be very, very surprised if we don't sort of get a good win today. I don't look at this Ireland team, and I don't look at it and worry. And they've got some good players, but I think they're on a downward sort of trajectory, whereas we're looking upwards and looking good, I think.
Agreed. Just before we head off and leave people to enjoy the first half, a tweet has been floating around recently regarding the anthems. Now, obviously, we as the England Rugby Pod know that the best anthem in world rugby is, of course, God Save the Queen. Followed closely by Swing Low. But if you're taking those two out of the equation, what in your opinion is the best anthem in rugby right now?
So it's God Save the Queen, number one.
Yeah.
It's Swing Low, number two.
Of course.
It's Jerusalem is three, and the rest of them can get bent.
Fair enough, guys. If you don't agree, if you have an opinion of your own that's a little different to ours, answers on a postcard or email us, englandrugbypod@gmail.com, at englandrugbypod on social media, and let us know. But more importantly, enjoy this anthem now, and we'll catch you at half time. Welcome back. First half done. Solid first half, Billy.
Yeah, that was brilliant. That was exactly what I wanted to see.
22-10, 3 tries. Could have been 4 potentially at the end there. Things looking good. Billy V, I don't know if that was an itchy knee. I don't care. it's time to take him off.
Yeah. We don't need to see any more of him. Let's get Wilson on.
And we need to see it, right?
Yeah, for sure. We need to see what our option is if Billy's not available, or if for some of the group games we're going to rest him, who's going to fit in there. I mean, we're assuming it's going to be Wilson. I can't see it being anybody else, but I'd still like to see it.
Well, I think England need. It's not just that we want to see it. I think we have to see it because I don't think you can play Billy in what is it, 4, 5, 6, 7? Is it 7 games to reach a World Cup final?
Yeah,
7 or 8. I don't. And if you're playing him in almost all your warm-ups as well, he's going to have 1 game off in 12 over the course of about as many weeks. So you've got to have the option to not play him. I suspect there's a chance he won't play against Tonga. Perhaps he also won't play against the USA. But and maybe that's why they're playing him today, because they're planning a long layoff. But in that case, we need to see what the alternative is.
Yeah, of course. I'd be happy if we don't see him against Italy, Tonga, or the USA. In all honesty, so he's had 2 games against Wales. He's had a half here against Ireland. Yeah. Let's get him off, wrap him in bubble wrap, send him to Japan, and we'll see him for the Argentina game.
Sounds like a plan. Now, I said to you before the first half, should we be concerned about pushing Manu further out wide? You correctly said absolutely not. When Manu and Big Joe are on the same side of the pitch, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Is there anything scarier than them 2 blokes running at you?
I mean, that try that Manu just scored, I tweeted about it, but I was watching it, and in all the build up to it, the scrum, it was a case of if England, the only way Ireland stop a try being scored here is if they win this scrum against the head. Because if England win this scrum, and they won it really quite messily, if England win this scrum, it's a try. And my prediction was that it would end up with Cokanasiga scoring in the corner, but Manu saw the gap and he went through it. They're devastatingly fierce when they're paired up together. And
from there as well, they're worried. Ireland are worried about Billy at the back of the scrum. They're worried about Manu coming through the middle or Joe outside. Just pick your poison.
Well, that's it, and they have to cover the first person that's going to be the problem, which means they need the extra man to be hanging around in case Billy goes. They need the extra man to be ready to defend against Manu. So worst case scenario, quick ball out wide, and Big Joe is there to finish the job. And yeah, it's a great position to be in. Like even though England are by no means perfect today, and we'll come on to that in a moment, they have it's looked very controlled when we have been kind of in positive possession, if that's a thing.
Yeah, I think we've looked good. I think we've looked good. We've looked in control of this game.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned to me during that half one of your notes that we didn't get around to in before the game began. Care to share?
Yeah, I was sort of doing some research when I found out that we were going to go forward, Faz and Manu, and the only time they've sort of been on the field together in their positions was against Australia in November, and just how having Manu outside with those dummy runs, it just draws defences in so narrow that there's always an option outside. And we scored with Farrell against Australia in November, but also outside Farrell was Daly and May coming round. So there's always an option. He's just so dangerous at 13 that he draws defences in, and we're always going to have options out wide. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's exactly it. Answers the question I asked you back then about, are there issues with pushing him out to 13? And I think what we're seeing today is that, not only is it, an option, but it's a really good option as well. And the fact that we already know that having him at 12 is a good option just suddenly means that we have this kind of shifting line where Farrell at 12, Manu at 13 can move to Farrell at 10, Manu at 12. And you can kind of keep things fairly consistent. I think it's a great problem to have if it can be described as a problem in terms of selection, because it gives you the freedom to have different options on the bench.
Yeah, exactly. And like we said about having Jonathan Joseph and Henry Slade, you don't mind one of them coming off the bench to try and get you a try, especially Jonathan Joseph. If he's coming off the bench with 20 minutes left against tired opposition, he's going to be looking for me meat all day, isn't it?
Absolutely. I don't like to point the finger at individuals on the England side, but I feel like today, we talked about how much Ben Youngs had to prove, I suppose, because of how well Hines has been playing, and it really feels like today Ben Youngs is standing out as a bit of a problem for England, because there's so much hard work going in to create opportunities. The forwards are absolutely dominating at times. I'm not taking anything away from Ireland, although they seem to have, the first 20 they look really strong. They kind of seem to give up a little bit in that second 20. But our forwards have looked so dominant, and all this hard work, and even the backs, once they get the front foot ball and they get going, have looked dominant. But Ben Youngs, he's slowing the ball down. He's making bad decisions. He's kicking badly. Obviously, that attempted penalty when you had Billy, it was give the ball to Billy, who's probably going to break at least one tackle, and we maintain that possession and that momentum, or throw the ball at your opposite man and try and scream at the referee to get a penalty. I don't know. It just, if this is a testing ground for things that potentially are going to happen in a World Cup, and you're Eddie Jones, you're fuming at that, aren't you?
Yeah, massively. That had England try all over it. That position that we were in. And it was not one, not two, but three pretty poor passes from Ben Youngs, and then just to throw it into, I think it was Healy, was it jogging back?
Yeah, I mean, it was open play. Healy was slowing down intentionally to try and create a nuisance of himself, but he's it's one of those slightly grey areas it's not offside because he is trying to get back. Just use him. Use him as almost like if you want, use him to block. Make a little dart in behind him.
Yeah,
do something.
Don't just throw the ball in.
No, exactly. It was really disappointing to see that. And as I tweeted, has he forgotten that Hines, who's on fire at the moment, is on the bench? Because this is definitely not how you answer your critics. When you're supposed to be the starting 9 in this England setup, one of only 2, and frankly, you're letting the side down a little bit.
Yeah, well, we said last week about Willie Hines looks like he should be the starter, and Ben Youngs is just proving our point to me.
I agree, but equally, I think seeing what I'm seeing today, it makes me say, well, do I want this guy coming on in the last 20 to try and either change a game or shore things up or whatever it might be? It worries me a little bit now that we only have these 2 9s in camp, because I think he's really struggling to offer us anything of value right now, and we know that he's capable of more, but that's not good enough. He needs to be delivering it now. It's no good saying he might not be he might not be playing very well at the moment, but he can be good. He was good, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, whatever it might be.
I mean, we're less than a month away from a World Cup, so if you want to find your form any time now, Mr. Youngs, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, agreed. So do we think? I mean, I guess because this is a warm-up game, we obviously want to win it, and we've got to give ourselves a good platform now at 22-10. Do you leave Youngs on and just try and give him that opportunity to sort it out? Because there might be an element of he's a bit rusty, because we know what Hines is capable of. Or is the win more important, and do we make that change, but potentially put Youngs on the back foot? And I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like we kind of
I mean, I would, if it's me, I'd be putting Willie Hines on now with the gun midfield he's got, and saying, if you can go out there and get us 2-3 tries and really boss the game, then the pressure's back on Youngsy to go out. Say to Youngsy, you've got 80 minutes against Italy. Prove to me you're my starter, because the way that Willie Hines has played against Wales has just said to me that he should be the man starting in the World Cup. And if he comes out at half time and he makes the change, and Willie Hines is dominating and making Ben Youngs look even slower, then why? I mean, he shouldn't just start just because his name's Ben Youngs.
No, I agree with you. I would like to see Hines come on now. I think you're right. I think you bring Hines on and you see, can you do more with this? The way that this midfield is playing off this pack, can you do more with it than he did in the first half? And if you can, noted. That's we put that down, and then we say to Ben Youngs, Italy is where you have your opportunity to kind of convince us that this was the right decision. and
Yeah, massively.
potentially even go with George Ford as your backup 9 to try that out if that is your kind of last ditch kind of reserve 9.
Well, I mean, Eddie's given himself enough time that, if Hines comes on at half time and does the business and he plays Youngs against Italy and he still looks like this, there's still time to drop him out and get DC in.
Make a change, yeah, exactly. So Danny Kerr, because you're obviously
Danny
listening.
Kerr, yeah, not Danny Cipriano.
Yeah, because you're obviously listening to this pod because it's such a big part of your life. Make sure you're staying fit.
Yeah,
it ain't
exactly.
over because the fat lady has not sung yet. Before we head back then, Billy, Mako's obviously coming on, we suspect, in the next 20 minutes or so. Looking forward to seeing what he's capable of. We forgot to mention that at halftime.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing Mako again in England shirt. Just hopefully he can get through it, come out at the end of the game and not have another injury. I mean, if he can... Go on. If he can, play 20, 30 minutes and look like the Mako of old, then, coming into the World Cup, fantastic. And an extra bonus.
I agree. I mean, at the moment, look, we've got Sink and Jamie George, looking awesome with ball in hand. The offloads, the pace, the kind of the aggression. You've got...
now we know why he didn't put a winger on the bench, because Jamie George is the third choice winger for this game.
Yeah. George Cruz is looking big and aggressive. You've obviously got Billy, you've got Maro.
Right, Sir Maro today. How well has he played the first half? Manu
and Kokonasiga, in the backs, it's just looking like a really strong unit. Then you've got the 2 sevens that, often a lot of what they do you miss, because when you're watching on TV and everything's happening quick, a lot of the work they're doing is sort of hidden away. So I'll reserve judgment, but I'm sure they're doing an awesome job. And obviously watching the replays, we'll find out a little bit more. But it's looking like a really solid A team at the moment. And Mako coming on for Joe Marler, who I'm sure will be blowing by the time that change happens. An opportunity to see another kind of front row player who has those kind of abilities with ball in hand. Another aggressive attacking player. So really looking forward to seeing what happens in this second half. We didn't do it in the first half. Predictions now that we've got this lead. No, tell you what, forget predictions. Prediction for it's 0-0. Predictions for the second half. Because Ireland are going to come out wanting to do something different.
Yeah, I was pretty confident going into the game. Like I said, I thought this was an Ireland team that's sort of on the downward trajectory and were looking really good. I was going to say at the start of the game a 20-point victory for England. I might not go that far, but I reckon we'll win this second half by 10 points.
Okay, interesting. I'm thinking they're going to get 10 second half, so they'll be on 20? And we're going to get 21. 3 more tries. I just, the way that they're playing, I just can't see them not scoring more tries.
I think it depends if we take the foot off the gas a little bit. I think it also depends if
he brings Hines on. I think Hines will put his foot on the gas, and that's going to increase. So I'm going to go for it because I like to exaggerate my predictions. I've never got one right. Always been way out, but that's what being positive is all about. So what does that do? That 43-20.
It's a 20, so a
23-point win. God. I mean, who'd have thunk that? Ireland number 2 in the world. No, number 3 in the world.
Don't mean anything.
Oh, I know. I mean, if Ireland, surely there's some connotation where England can get ahead of Wales. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's not.
I don't think it matters, does it? Wales were.
What matters is World Cup final after Wales have already been knocked out and England beat New Zealand in the final.
Exactly.
Although I don't think that's going to happen either, because I'm pretty sure if both New Zealand and England win their groups, they'll meet in the semis. But that's another bit of maths that needs doing for these pods. Anyway, let's get back to it. Let's see what happens in that second half, and we'll be back to discuss it all in 40 minutes or so, except, of course, for you guys, it will be more like 30 seconds. Guys, welcome back It wasn't quite 43-20 as predicted at half-time, but it wasn't a bad result, was it?
What a result. What a result that was. I mean, not to get too carried away because it is a warm-up game.
Exactly,
but
yeah.
We gave Ireland what for, I think.
57-15. I mean, that's... I mean, you can say don't get too carried away, but against a team that's second or third in the world, I'm not sure how the rankings sit right now, third in the world, let's say. Any time you're putting 57 points on them, I think you can take something from it. I don't think this is the sort of game where you can say yes, but that was a cracking performance from England. Obviously aided by the fact that Ireland were very out of sorts. Didn't look great at all.
Oh, we were playing Ireland. I thought Scotland were wearing green.
Well, we're careful what we say. Last time we tried to mug Scotland off, they came back and we drew the game. So,
we'll forget about that one.
But yeah, look, in terms of what you want 3 weeks out from the start of the World Cup, you can't choose your opposition. You can't choose the way they're going to play, at least. That's a solid performance, right? You can't have asked for much more from the players, and yet, clearly there is more to give. I like the fact that immediately they're talking about the areas that they can improve on. There's no sitting back in their laurels, and they're certainly under no illusions that translates into watch out the rest of the world. But I think for us fans watching, it's a really exciting time, and I think England showed glimpses of what we expect to see during the World Cup.
Yeah, massively. And look, Ireland didn't turn up to play really, but if you look at their team on paper, it's a really strong team. Not if they would have won today, not that it matters, but they would have been the number one team in the world. We put nearly 60 points on them. Yeah,
exactly. Well, exactly. It does make a bit of a joke out of the world rankings system. I've got to be honest. A lot of Kiwi fans rightly kind of displeased with the fact that Wales are number one in the world, having never beaten New Zealand.
I understand their point.
Yeah, absolutely. And likewise, Ireland, a team that, had the result gone the other way, they'd be number one in the world. As it happens, they're beaten so convincingly by a record score. It's something's not quite adding up in the way that the supposed best team in the world is being chosen. But fortunately, it won't be long before there's a certain little competition that will determine it once and for all.
Yeah, I think the new rule should be, if it's a non-World Cup year, if you're top of the rankings at the end of the year, you have to play the All Blacks, and the winner's the real number one.
Yeah, you play the winner of the previous World Cup. Yeah, no, I think that's probably a good shout. Yeah. I guess that's kind of what they were going for with the what were they going to call it? The World League.
Oh, yeah, well, they were going to sort of make the Six Nations part of it, and.
Well, yeah, I think, the Six Nations was going to be how the Northern Hemisphere played each other. The Championship was going to be how the Southern Hemisphere played each other. And then the autumn internationals and the summer tours and things would have everyone playing each other. I think from a top flight point of view, it was a great idea. I think the issue was that they were going to have two tiers, and there was the risk of teams who didn't perform well getting knocked down into tier two. And obviously the likes of Scotland and even Ireland, actually, and presumably Wales, were not that keen on the idea of there being that risk that they would end up in playing two-tier games instead of top-tier games.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with the way it is. I don't think it needs to change. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is being the best team at the end of the year on a World Cup cycle. The rest of it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, true. I think I think it would be good to, like you say, have something that just sort of says, the world champions play number one in the world, unless they're both at some point in the season, in order to determine who is number one in the world at that time. But anyway, going back to this game, yes, it was poor Ireland, 34 missed tackles. You can't be doing that in an international game, and it's got to be a bit worrying for them a few weeks out from the World Cup. Obviously we're not here to talk about Ireland, but I genuinely think Ireland against Wales is going to be fascinating next week.
Yeah, Ireland have got a lot to prove. They they almost looked scared in that second half to make a tackle. They looked like they didn't really want to make a tackle against one of our big runners.
Well, I mean, I don't know whether... I was very surprised. Normally Ireland have a really strong kicking game, and given all of the kind of chat surrounding Daly and his poor ability, with the ball in the air, they didn't really test him once in that. I'm very surprised they didn't try to use the aerial ball a bit. I mean, unless that was something they intentionally came out saying, look, let's see what happens when we don't do it. It's a training game.
Yeah, I think that might be their plan, because when they played Italy the other week, they didn't box kick once.
So, yeah, maybe they're saying, let's keep that in our locker. We know we're good at it.
Yeah, but maybe they're trying to build a game plan without having to box kick. I'm not quite sure.
I mean, from their point of view, you would think they would have to start using it in one of their remaining couple of warm-up games, because you can't go into the World Cup kind of on the back of, well, when we played in the Six Nations, our kicking was really strong, so it will probably still be. So you expect they would,
and they still lost to us and Wales in the Six Nations.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I said, they're on a downward trajectory. I don't see them making much noise.
It's
at the
not
World
ideal,
Cup
is it? In a
no,
not just a World Cup year, but 3 weeks out from the start of a World Cup.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Eddie interviewed at the end of the game there, and he was asked about the Kamikaze twins, and he very quickly changed the subject. Do you take anything from that, or is that just him wanting to talk about other things?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Do you know what? At the end of the game, when the players were walking around, Tom Curry looked like he was holding his arm like he'd hurt his shoulder.
Do you think?
Well, I mean, it looked, the way he was holding his arm was almost like he was supporting it like a sling.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a bit strange. And then when Eddie sort of glanced over it and didn't say much, I kind of thought, oh, maybe he's hurt himself. I hope not, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be surprised if they let him just wander around supporting himself if he was in difficulty. I'd have thought they'd have had him whisked away and wrapped up. But
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it was an interesting one because I thought they played brilliantly together.
Oh, they were fantastic. They were fantastic.
Yeah. When Mark Wilson came on, but not for Billy, when they changed Curry and Underhill, I've got to be honest, I was thinking, well, is there value in having 2 sevens to start and then having 2 sixes? Like if you're gonna replace 2 sevens with a pair of sixes, would you not be better off actually having a combination of the two throughout? Now, obviously, it's hard to sort of debate what Eddie actually did because it was a hell of a result. But like, in your opinion, is that the right way to go about it? I do think Wilson should have come on for Billy, and they should have given Billy a rest. But
yeah, that's what I was hoping to see. I was hoping Wilson was going to come on for Billy. But maybe the fact that Underhill and Curry have both had, they've both had injuries recently, especially Underhill. He seems to be quite injury prone. If they're that important to the cause, then get them off.
True. But then wouldn't we say that of Billy? I mean,
Billy as well. Yeah.
Clearly, Eddie, Billy is his golden goose because he just, couldn't heap enough praise on him, and particularly talking about his ability to offload in the tackle, which of course, when you're breaking through 2 or 3 people and then managing an offload as well, is massive for momentum and territory and just giving England that front foot ball that they need to put points on teams. That little kind of bit where Johnny May, can't tell whether he flicked the ball back or whether it just got knocked out of his hand.
I think it got knocked out and he sort of flicked
it. Looked like that, but when the replays, when they were looking at it, it almost looked like he kind of gave it a little back flick. It was sort of
I think it popped up and he saw it was maybe going forward and just flicked it backwards. So it was pretty smart from Johnny May.
Johnny May's definitely, when he first came on the scene, he was literally a kind of puppy running around blindfolded. He was just kind of all over the place. He's a much smarter player now. He seems to be.
100%. I think he's one of, if not the most dangerous wingers in the world.
And he showed it today. Yeah,
he's unbelievable. When he gets going, he just scares defences with that speed of his.
Given that he's supposedly the second quickest on the England team after Johnny May, has Big Joe cemented his place as a starting winger for England?
I think so. I said last week before the Wales game that I think he Big Joe and Johnny May are the starting wingers, and I don't think anything's changed. He was brilliant again today. scored a couple of tries and just caused havoc pretty much. I think he didn't get tested under the high ball, which is probably the only concern we have of him.
It was actually a shame that didn't happen, because I would have liked to have seen, he has these opportunities to answer his critics, but he can only do obviously what's put in front of him, and we know he's great on the counter attack. We know he's great ball in hand. We know he's got an enormous boot. But if his one weakness is something that they don't test him with in these warm up games, we're going to be none the wiser. So I think it is a shame. I would like to have seen him replaced with Anthony Watson. I'm assuming Anthony Watson's fit, but maybe not. Just so we're aware of what the options are. Even if we are, I said it at half time. I said it probably before the game as well. But happy if Daly is the way we're going to go. That's fine, but I just want to know what happens if, and I want to have seen it.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that maybe Eddie missed the trick not having a back three sort of replacement. But hopefully against Italy, we'll see a bit of a mix up and maybe see Watson at fullback and maybe Daly on the wing or just something a little bit different, just so we know what we've got in reserve.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Manu, we asked it at half time, 12 versus 13. He's looked so good in that 13 shirt today. Eddie, when asked about it, kind of said, he actually said Ireland was soft in defence.
Yeah, he did.
And then quickly changed his mind to how what he meant by that. But I think we all know what he meant.
We all know what he meant.
But he had a point in that, today, Manu had a lot of time at 13. With a more sort of intense blitz defence, getting up in players' faces, would we struggle to get him the ball with the time to do what he does? So it'll be interesting to see whether or not he is just used in different ways against different teams, and actually as the competition gets tougher, whether he starts to move further inside in order to give us a bit more time to get the ball in his hands, because there's no question he creates overlaps with the way he draws in defences.
Yeah, I think, having Manu and playing him 12 or 13, it doesn't really matter. Like I say, if they're getting...
start them outside, and if it's looking like they're getting up too quick, move them in.
Yeah, if they're getting sort of fast line speed and we're not being able to get the ball out to him, then just put him at 12. Let him get the ball, let him crash the ball up and hopefully slow them down a little bit.
And presumably, if you're playing... if you happen to be playing a Ford Farrell Tuilagi at 10, 12, 13, for example, and a situation presents itself like that, there's no real reason why Manu and Farrell couldn't switch places and have Owen Farrell almost playing that kind of Henry Slade role a little bit further out. You have the two playmakers either side of the big crash ball man. You can use the miss pass if you need to kind of treat Owen Farrell like a 12. Or you do a bit like they did today, where Farrell, even though he's at 12, is often stepping inside, but being missed out, having drawn a man in and looping round. And I think they said in commentary it's a bit like what Johnny Sexton usually does, except in the case of Sexton, he obviously offloads the ball himself and then loops, kind of old school. Yeah. Very effective. And actually, what Owen Farrell and Ford were doing today kind of had the same effect. Him standing inside Ford, pulled in a defender. But he was never getting the ball. He loops, and they're creating overlaps on the outside.
Yeah, that's the problem. With having, I say it's a problem. It's a good thing for us in having Manu and Farrell. You can't just leave one. No. You can't just say, it's definitely going to go out to Manu, so we'll rush him. We'll stick two on him. You've got to make sure that Faz is covered, because as well as being fantastic as a passing 12, he's a big boy. If you give him space, he's going to go through it.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, it's a good problem, good selection problem Eddie's got with the midfield, I think.
Yes, talking of problems, should we be concerned about Mako? Eddie's obviously palmed it off as he had a bit of a hamstring twinge, and it was kind of a better safe than sorry. But the way that the other guys reacted to him coming off the pitch, the way that he looked in himself when he was walking off, it didn't look great. Should we be worried?
It didn't look great, did it? It didn't look great him coming off.
He didn't look like he was in huge amounts of pain. He wasn't limping, But at the same time, it was just that reaction from Manu and the other guys on the bench, and just that look on his face. He just seemed very down, which is always a bit of a concern.
I mean, I think that could be put down to the fact that he's been injured for a while. He's got back. He's come on, with half an hour to play, and he's not been able to see the game out, or 20 minutes to play rather, not been able to see the game out. It didn't look too serious. I think he's another one. Same with Billy. Stick them both in bubble wrap, send them to Japan, and hopefully
just tell their replacements to just be ready just in case.
Yeah, well, especially with Mako. But I think he's so important for us when it comes to the big games.
Yeah,
I think he's one of our best. He's our best forward in my opinion. I think
it's almost a shame if they save him for the big games, and the guys that put in the hard graft to get to the big games are going to miss out. But it's a squad.
I mean, you can't
tournament.
save him. You can't save him just for the big games, but I think that's where it's important to make sure he's fit for. So if it means pulling him off or not starting him in a lesser game when we've already qualified from the group or against the USA, then I'm fine with that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just important to keep him fit and make sure that he's there when we need him. In the final.
For sure. I mean, so Eddie has said it's going to be another mixed squad against Italy. What do you expect to see? What do you want to see? What have we not seen yet that needs to be tested in our final? We've got a week off now, but then our final warm-up game against Italy in 2 weeks' time. What are the things that you want to see from this team? It's obviously less of a challenge in terms of the opposition. Not to disrespect Italy, but if you on paper, it's less of a test. When you compare to what we were expecting to see today from Ireland. Yeah,
I mean, if I had my way completely, I would sort of start the second stringers, and I would on the bench I'd have the guys that he's looking at as injury replacements. Any of the starting 15, I wouldn't have anywhere near that game.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I mean, you got the impression that he's going to go down the sort of half and half route again.
Yeah.
I think what would be probably quite good would be to have, almost have half. Well, it's the opposite of what you just said, but have half your starters starting with your second 15, and then have your replacements there to replace your second 15, so that you have the option. Well, I don't know. Actually, maybe that's a bad call.
I just don't. I mean, if let's say,
or are we getting combinations again?
Yeah, what are we going to gain from it? We've done that against Wales. This is a lesser opposition in Italy. What the upside is that we win. Okay, great. The downside is someone like Manu or someone like Farrell or someone like one of the Vinopolas gets injured.
Yeah.
And it could ruin our World Cup.
It's very true. I still want to see an alternative. I think Daly should be rested. I want to see an alternative there. I think Watson is the man to start at 15. I believe Jack Noel is potentially back in time for Italy. So obviously, I think if he is, you probably need to give him a run out, because he's got to have some time with the ball before the competition begins. So that will obviously be a good one to see. Back row, I think you rest Billy and you start Wilson at 8. Guess the question then is, I really want to see Courtney Laws in the second row. He keeps coming on in the back row, and he's great. He'll do a job, but for me, he's a second row first and foremost.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So he can do a job.
Yeah,
he can do a job in the back row, but he's a world class lock.
I mean, Cruz and Itoje were awesome today, and I think they are the starting second row. Which is a shame for Laws if he's there as a second row, and Launchbury, but two world class players in their own right. So there are options, but I just think don't force it. If you're going to have Laws on the bench, be looking at him as a second row. So let's have a look at him in the row next week, in 2 weeks' time against Italy. Let's give Cruz or Itoje, doesn't matter which, a rest. Crusoe's looking big, isn't he?
Oh, I love Crusoe. I think it's more important to maybe rest Marrow though, because on his day he's a well beater. Yeah.
Fine. Yeah. So Laws and Cruz start the game. I mean, you could have Marrow on the bench, but it doesn't matter if you don't. Wilson at 8, and then do you go Curry Underhill again? Do you give Ludlam another run out?
Yeah, I would probably rest Underhill.
So go Curry Ludlam.
Yeah, Curry Ludlam sounds good to me.
Or Ludlam.
Yeah, which either way, the fact that we played 2 7s today kind of means it doesn't really matter who's got the 6 and who's got the 7 on their shirt.
No, it's true.
So yeah, Ludlam and Curry, I just think that with Underhill, he's always a risk of knocking himself out or hurting himself.
Punching himself in the face or something.
Well, he just likes to go in head first, doesn't he? And put his head where most people wouldn't.
Kamikaze is definitely a good word to describe him.
Yeah, I think if we could rest Marrow, Underhill, Vinopola, then I don't even mind the rest of the forward. The rest of the forward staying the same.
And what about at 9? What are we going to do?
Oh, I think. What did you think when Willie Hines came on?
I felt like the game's sped up. I just don't see how you start Ben Youngs out of choice at the moment. And I know he's only had one game since the Six Nations for England, and that was today, obviously, and it didn't go great. And I feel like he does need some time to see if that was just one of those days, bad day at the office or whatever. But I would seriously be thinking about whether or not we need a backup. And he brought Joe Marchant in today, despite the fact he's not in the 31. I'd be seriously tempted to start Youngs, but actually Hines has shown us enough, and actually bring in one of the other guys.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant
against Italy, just to say partly to put a bit of pressure on Ben Youngs.
Yeah,
but also just to know what the options are. And I guess the trouble is, unless Eddie knows exactly who his number 3 is.
I think his number 3 has to be Danny Kerr, doesn't it? I think it has to be.
Well, you'd think so, but obviously you've got Robson sitting in the wings, who was in camp when Kerr wasn't. So
yeah, I just don't. I don't know. I just think Danny Kerr offers something. If you're going to bring
if you're losing that experience from Ben Youngs, and it's unfair to say that I'm not saying we need to drop Ben Youngs because he had a bad game. I think he needs time to be given the opportunity to see if that was if there's if it was just a bad day at the office, as I say. But
so start him against Italy.
I think you start Ben Youngs against Italy, but I wonder whether Hines you've seen enough, and whether you just bring in someone else, because it really was poor today.
Yeah, he was a really bad performance from him,
and I'm sure he'd be the first to say this, to put his hands up and admit that, maybe not to the press, but certainly in camp.
Of course.
So he's going to have a lot to prove against Italy, and he may well do that, and he may come out and be the Ben Youngs of old, and we'll all be saying, problem solved, and we can relax and breathe a sigh of relief. But yeah, it does worry me a little bit what we saw today, and I think I would just like to know that we knew who was waiting in the wings.
Yeah, no, I agree. It wasn't pretty from Ben Youngs today, but if we can, if Eddie's gonna take him, which there's no reason to believe he won't, then I think he's got to start against Italy, and just sort of be given more time to prove that he is still the Ben Youngs we know. Yeah,
and of course, again against Italy, we've still not seen McConaughey, so assuming he's not still injured, you would expect that he would also be in that lineup. So McConaughey, Watson at the back. So you could go McConaughey and Noel on the 2 wings, with Watson at the back for a completely different looking back 3.
That sounds good to me.
Slade hopefully is back, so we get to see Slade in the centres with whoever it might be. I think probably Manu could do with a rest now.
Yeah, I wouldn't play him against Italy. I'd rest him up, and there must be.
You probably go Piers Francis, don't you? Just because it's like, you don't want to get any of your big guns injured. Go Francis at 12, Slade at 13. Possibly you go Ford again at 10.
I'd go Farrell at 10.
Actually, we haven't started him at 10, have we?
Yeah. Plus, if you want to give,
Ford on the
Ben
bench.
Youngs...
Actually, because if Ford on the bench, you've got the option of trying him at 9 if that's what you want to do. Or you go with the tried and tested of bringing him on at 10, moving Farrell to 12.
Yeah, I would start Farrell. I might not play him more than 40, 50, 60 minutes, but he would be my starting 10 for Italy.
So that pretty much is the team decided, and obviously Eddie listens, so I'm sure that we can expect that to be the team that gets announced in a couple of weeks' time.
Well, I'll ring him after this and just tell him what we said. So
that'd be good.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll listen.
Anything else that you took from that game that you want to discuss?
No, I just thought it was a really good performance. I thought that Manu was amazing, Maro was amazing, the Kamikaze kids were brilliant.
Sinclair, George, Cruz.
Oh, Sinclair's hands for Curry's try.
It was proper. I mean, it takes you back to when New Zealand were. I say when New Zealand were dominating the world. Yeah, I think that's fair because I think there's definitely the gap has closed. But it wasn't that long ago that the gap was huge, and it was the fact that their forwards had that ability to play a style of rugby that the rest of the world didn't seem to have cottoned onto. And watching England today, it was like watching that type of a performance, which is really positive going into the World Cup.
Oh yeah, if you look at our starting front row of Vinopola, Jamie George, and Carl Sinclair, there isn't a front row in the world with hands like them boys.
No.
They're unbelievable, them three.
Exciting times.
Yeah, I think it was a really good performance, and everyone apart from George Ford put in a really good shift. George Ford, Ben Youngs put in a really good shift.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I especially enjoyed. You see Manu Tuilagi when he hit Jordan Lamore and almost ended his life.
The biggest hit I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I had to tweet. That is what a big legal hit looks like.
That was something.
It was almost like they wanted it to be illegal because it was so aggressive, and then the replay showed there was nothing wrong with it at all.
Nothing wrong with it. It was
other than
just
the fact that in any other circumstance it would be GBH.
That's you get arrested for that anywhere else apart from a rugby pitch.
Yeah, unfortunately, he got the ball kind of ended up between the two of them, and he sort of bounced off the ball, which didn't help. But yeah, just massive hit, and it just goes to show what we've got sitting in the back line. I mean, there aren't many big forwards that put in hits like that.
I mean, when your outside centre is rocking people's world like that, it's good.
And it just sends more. It's the kind of messages that it sends, isn't it? I mean, there's not a team in the world that is watching this game, and I don't care who you are, Welsh fan or not. There's not a team in the world watching this game that isn't going, God, I hope we don't have to contend with an on form fit Manu. A Cock and a Seager out wide with space, a Johnny May with space to run.
I just think that Manu is the most physically dominant centre when fit in the world.
Well, Eddie has, since he came on board, he's talked about Manu, despite all his injury problems, as being, he is the All Black. I can't remember what he actually said, the All Black killer or the All Black
beater or
something like that. And he's absolutely right. It's the kind of guy that can school a world class team. If on his day, and I'm sure people will say, well, there's lots of teams who've got players who are like that, and yeah, fair enough. But we're not talking about them. We're talking about England, and we're talking about Manu Tuilagi, and he's huge, and he puts in massive hits, and he's awesome. Yeah,
there's no one I would rather want, or I'd want rather than Manu Tuilagi in my midfield. My English was terrible then.
I mean, I wouldn't worry. I won't be calling on Manu after watching his post game interview. I won't be calling on Manu to do any media punditry himself. But that's fine. He doesn't have to be good at succinctly explaining himself. He just needs to be good at smashing people and breaking through gaps and doing exactly what it is that he does.
Just let him play rugby.
Exactly.
Just let him play rugby because he does it so well.
Awesome. All right. Well, cracking performance from the lads. Let's just keep it going, keep building, as they're saying, keep improving. If you can keep improving on performances like that, loving it. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and Billy, thanks so much again to you for stepping up once again. And I'm sure it won't be the last time that we call upon your services.
I hope not.
I hope you've enjoyed being involved again. And guys, I say it every week. If you get the opportunity, head over to iTunes, rate us, review us, let us know what you think. If you've got any questions, if you've got any comments about the things that we've discussed, things you've spotted that maybe we haven't, or you just want to share any rugby-related stories, reach out to us. You can email us, englandrugbypod@gmail.com, get in touch with us on social media @englandrugbypod. And Dan and I will be back midweek to probably discuss a little bit more about this game, but look forward to the Italy game. And I think we're contending with the idea of some sort of a fantasy-style World Rugby 15, which I think just got a little more England heavy after today. So we'll catch you next week.